Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, friends. We have a great guest for you. Not only is Steve Montgomery an entrepreneur, but today he's an advocate for entrepreneurs as the president and CEO of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. He helps ensure Fort Worth is a great place to do business, and I cannot wait to hear from him today. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. So we know each other a little bit, so I'm excited to have this little fireside chat with you and have our friends listen.
Yes.
So tell us, I want, before we get into the official questions, tell us a little bit about your background. As I mentioned, you have been an entrepreneur before taking on this role as ambassador of entrepreneurs. So tell us a little bit about your background and then, bring us forward to today in your role.
Absolutely. Very proud. Born and raised in Fort Worth. Grew up here and started early in my career. Got a degree in political science, which qualified me to do absolutely nothing. So other than pursue an interest in public policy, which I did, and I learned along the way. And I worked for the government at state and federal levels, just kind of learning how public policy works. And during that, learned a little bit about how businesses interface with government. Had the opportunity in early 2000s to join a group of friends who were doing a startup in the healthcare software space. And I was at that time not a healthcare expert nor a software expert, but they were looking to sell and grow the company into the government space. Public health was what the platforms supported. So I entered through the door of maybe doing business development, government contracting piece, and brought some experiences that I had. But it was a new startup. I think I was the fourth employee of the company. And many small business people who are listening, we went through all the trials and tribulations of a small company, and that is really helped me today. We were very fortunate. We were able to grow it. Not a smooth trajectory. We had our ups and downs. We had our challenges, as many small businesses do. But we were very fortunate to ultimately grow the company, and we sold it in 2018. And so it was a great experience. But what it brings to me today as an advocate, and that's what the Fort Worth Chamber really is an advocacy organization for local business, and small businesses and large. But for the small business person, I feel like I'm able to sit across the table from them and say, legitimately and honestly, I know what it's like to be in your seat. I know what it's like to wake up on Monday wondering how I'm going to make payroll on Friday, and just the normal things that business owners deal with and have to address on an ongoing basis. And I've been through all of those, in various ways. And so I'm able to speak honestly and understand their challenges. And then how can the chamber assist them, right? How can the chambers bring the things to the table that a small business owner needs as they're trying to grow their business? So I'm hopeful that perspective from the public policy perspective and from the small business person's perspective is helpful. Right,
exactly. Being able to bring, exactly what you're saying, understanding those anxieties and a line I like to use with clients. It came from my parents' wedding vows, but which were divide sorrows and multiply joys. And I think when you understand what someone's going through, you really can help them. Help them amplify the highs, and then also, take some of the sting out of the lows. When you are able to work alongside someone and be like, no, I've been there, I get it, and so I as a chamber member. I appreciate it.
I think it helps. I think it does help. It helps us structure our programming and the way we advocate. That tries to meet the needs. And along my career path, I did work for some large companies, so sort of have a perspective of what is it like to be in a large corporate environment, which again helps. As we're helping some of our larger members,
right.
And how they interface with maybe government regulations or new policies coming out of Washington or Austin or even City Hall. And just sort of understanding, all right, here's how the business world works. And what are their priorities, and so how do we help them achieve those things. So
Yeah, great. Well, a first official question. Steve, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
my wife will tell you how impatient I am, and I am an entrepreneur. But I do understand. I guess from my entrepreneurial background, there are things I'd love to see Fort Worth do, and then maybe this is my impatient side of it. They're love. We've got a lot of great entrepreneurial energy in Fort Worth, and I love to see it every day when I talk to members or early stage entrepreneurs and seeing their vision. What I'd love to see grow in Fort Worth is that entrepreneurial ecosystem, support system across more industries. Right, I'd love to see us do more in technology in terms of supporting young entrepreneurs, or not young, just early stage entrepreneurs. As they're building their concepts and their new idea and trying to get their traction and so I'd love to I'm impatient in the sense that there's so many more things I think Fort Worth can do in an entrepreneurial space to really diversify that ecosystem. We do some things very, very well, and I'm very proud of what we do, but I see growth opportunities too. So maybe I'm a little bit impatient. I want to do it now.
Yeah.
Let's do it now.
Ready. I'm ready. Ready, set, go. Go, ready, set.
Right.
What is there one area in particular or one facet that you would really like to have happen sooner rather than later?
Yes. Think about healthcare, and we've got some amazing healthcare providers in Fort Worth and in Tarrant County. And just thinking here locally in Fort Worth, we've got a cohort of fabulous hospitals, world-class healthcare institutions within close proximity of each other. Now we've got a world-class medical school embedded right in the middle of it with TCU Medical School. And I'm not the one to start. There's a lot of conversations have been going on about this, about what can we do to leverage that cohort of patients here in a pretty localized area? Maybe pharmaceutical trials. Could we attract some pharmaceutical outpost from some pharmaceutical companies to set up shop here and really maybe run some pharma trials with local patients to start building that healthcare infrastructure, entrepreneurial infrastructure, right? Leveraging that base of amazing healthcare providers to grow our healthcare entrepreneurial sector.
I love that. That's great. I hadn't heard you say that before. So how do you fuel yourself as a leader? Are you a books guy? Do you listen to podcasts? Are you going to conferences? Are you part of any groups? What's most helpful to you, as a leader, business leader, and all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I, by nature, and this isn't directly the question you're asking, but I'm an introvert by nature. And so, I have to, I've learned through my career, because my career has always been very outward facing, and very much interfacing with clients, customers, policymakers. So I've developed techniques to overcome my introvertedness. In a sense of being able to interface with people and do my job effectively. But what that means is it's an expenditure of energy. What I do is seek recharging opportunities, right? And the contemplative opportunities to really think through my problems. Sometimes it'll be getting out of my tractor, all right? I'm mowing a pasture, but it helps me process, right? And finding ways just to help process challenges that I may be facing in my company or, day-to-day operations of the chamber, but just finding those retreat opportunities that let my mind work in a space that it needs to solve those problems. But I do a lot of reading. I don't listen to as many podcasts as I should, but whenever time I do, I'm like, I need to do that more. These are always educational. But yeah, the sort of the retreat from the noise and the hustle of normal day life really is a great opportunity for me to to solve problems.
Right. Well, gosh, I did not realize you were an introvert because
Yes.
you are out there, friend. I am also an outgoing introvert. You probably, yeah, it's
Yes.
like, but yeah, it's actually all about energy. I mean, when I was a panelist for y'all the other day, or a moderator actually the other day for your young professionals conference, I even told the audience, like, I'll have to go lay down after this.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. I get to the end of the week and it's like, boom.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but you got to do it. Are there any books that have been particularly formative to you in your journey?
Quite a few. And I know a lot of people have read Traction, the
Yep.
EOS system, I think is a really great
Yep.
book. I've got a new one I'm really fascinated with. I've just started. It's called Education is Freedom. It's by a guy named James Keyes.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually was a speaker at TCU this morning at an event. And so I made sure I went to go listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
He formerly ran 7-Eleven and Blockbuster.
Oh, wow.
And so he gave some interesting perspectives on all of that. But his point on education as freedom is the underscored the importance of continuing to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
A degree is important and a formal education is important, but really that's just a license to go learn more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he said, one of his sayings was, they can take your belongings away from you. They can take all the kind of things away from you, but they can never take your knowledge away from you.
Right.
And sort of having that knowledge, sets you free in so many ways, but you have to continue to go seeking and attaining knowledge.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. It's a great book. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I think the philosopher Goethe said something along those lines of, you can never take my knowledge away from me, basically.
That's right.
My dad is just screaming at me with the actual quote right now. Well, yes. And that reminds me of the other day, I have a fifth grader and she was, I think it's actually when she was in fourth grade, but she was undergoing a really pretty high level like science project. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like college level type, process. And it dawned on me, I was like, you are learning how to learn right now. It's not about what you are going to produce as the outcome. Like you are really learning how to learn, like how to actually do a project. Everything else is irrelevant. It's like once we kind of broke it down to that level, but yeah, exactly. It's the formal education is how do you learn how to study and assimilate information and then hopefully have a lifelong love of learning is what we want for our students to have a zeal and for learning versus feel pressured and beat down by it.
Absolutely. And throughout our careers, we should always be seeking to learn more, not just about our jobs, but, maybe another language, maybe learn about another culture. There's always things to learn.
Absolutely. And to be, I think, especially as you get further along in your career and you accumulate this proficiency and excellence, you don't really have the opportunity to learn quite as much because you are doing the teaching. I mean, obviously you learn through teaching, but, I found myself having to put myself into, like learning something in a vacuum. I'm like, I got to go I'm going to go be a learner today and I'm going to go do something I'm terrible at.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Because that's when your brain starts to change. It's like that's why ropes courses are really popular for team development because what your brain chemistry changes when you're in these uncomfortable new environments, and that's why they work so well. So forcing yourself to be in these situations where it's like, no, I'm not going to be good at this, and I'm just gonna start at the bottom and work my way up.
Yeah. Well, and bringing it back to our conversation about entrepreneurs and business owners, small business owners especially, is the difference between working in the business and working on the business, right? And sometimes you do need to step back and say, all right, let me step out of the fast moving current of everyday life of running the company and say, all right, now where strategically we need to look and sort of stepping back. I think is really critical to your success.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been wanting to take a solo retreat. I have not done it yet this year, but I've hired our coach and she does something called clarity breaks where she goes alone and does something. I'm like, oh, clarity break. That's a good name for that.
I'm going to steal that. Yeah. I love clarity breaks. That's my tractor time.
Exactly.
Breaks.
So everybody go take a clarity break. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, and this can be from your prior entrepreneurial journey or as a leader for the chamber, but what's something that's happened in your career path where you're going along, everything's going great, but then the rug just gets pulled right out from underneath you, and you think, okay, I'm not entirely sure we're going to survive this, but ultimately, it turns out to be one of the best things that could happen.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I won't say this is one of the best things that happened, but just sort of overcoming, challenges and just finding your own resilience. And I'll refer back to in my entrepreneurial periods of a small company and growing a small company you're chasing a business opportunity. You feel like you really are going to get it. And at the last minute, you don't get it, you don't win it, or it gets delayed. It's like, all right, we built everything to accommodate this timeline, and now they're looking at 6 months down the road. And just could be so impactful in a negative way to your company. So those sorts of challenges, and how it helped me, when we would face those things, would be, all right, I'm resilient, right? It's like, I'm gonna cry tonight, but I'm gonna get up in the morning, and I'm coming back at this. And I'll give you an example of a really, an exceptional challenge was the company I was mentioning that we had to start up. One of our founders passed away unexpectedly, and very, very central to the sort of the intellectual center of gravity in terms of our innovation and the things that we were working on. So it was extremely impactful to all of us personally, but to the company as well.
Sure.
And where it really, how it worked out is we all rallied, right? The team that he had helped build, we realized at that point why he chose us, right? Because we all brought things to the table. It's like, all right, he would have wanted us to do this. He would have wanted me to do this. So we filled in sort of the void that he had created with his passing. And that was really important for me, just in my overall career, of thinking, all right, as you build teams, it's like, you think about that. You think about, all right, if I disappear tomorrow,
right?
Is the organization going to be able to carry forward because I put the right team in place?
Right.
And you never want to lose somebody like that. You never, but it was a great business lesson for me. It's like, wow, that was a personal blow to me, but also a potential devastating business blow that turned out to be something that we dealt with, and it reaffirmed our mission.
Oh man, that is a tough one. That's probably one of the few ones that's like, there's really no way to shine that one up. But right. You're right. The outcome, it does teach you so much. And there's quite a lot in there. I've heard from a few folks on this show and just in life where co-founders have passed away unexpectedly, and it shakes you to your core, especially if you're a leader of one. Right. Okay, what happened? So,
right. You find out how resilient you really are, and I think we're all a lot more resilient than we probably give ourselves credit for.
For sure, for sure. There's a mantra I picked up a couple years ago is this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't know how yet, but it is, and right. Being able to then turn around and as things happen to you. Or to the business, showing up with that type of energy really helps to reframe the situation and be like, I can overcome this. I do have the fortitude and the grit to figure this out. And I don't have to know how it's going to work out for me just yet, but just have the faith that it will. That's
exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So as a kid, were you an entrepreneur?
Yes, I was. I had as a young teenager, early teenager, I had an airplane washing business.
Airplane? I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, so I come from a family of pilots and aviators and all that, and so we spent a lot of time at a small municipal airport nearby, and it's actually closed now, but it was operational at the time, and so I would be out there a lot, and I would notice that small business plane owners would be washing their own airplanes. I had an idea. How could I get into the business of washing airplanes? So for several summers, it was a summer kind of gig because I was a junior high. that I had an airplane washing business, the Montgomery airplane washing business, airplane washing. We didn't put business in the title. And yeah, and so I had kids, my classmates. I'd come out and I'd make a deal with them to split a certain amount of however much we were charging to wash airplanes. So yeah, I was a early stage. I was in the service industry.
You sure were. And when you went off to college, did the business exit? Did you sell it or just die?
It passed.
Yeah, it passed. Yeah, you're like, never mind. I've got bigger fish to fry.
That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. That's so fascinating. And now, are you a pilot?
I am not. No.
Okay. Oh, all right. Me neither. That sounds terrifying. Okay. So when you were a kid with your business, and et cetera, was there ever a personality trait of yours where folks, they told you directly, like, Steve, you need to work on this, or you just perceived it to be a weakness of yours, but today as a leader, you now see it as your superpower?
Yeah, absolutely. So I referred earlier that I'm an introvert. And of course, when you're a kid and you're an introvert, you just think you're shy, right? They say, oh, that kid's shy. He's quiet. And as I learned skills to overcome that in terms of interfacing with people, why I think it's being introverted in the jobs that like you and I have as running organizations is I think we stop to listen, right? We stop and listen to what's going on before we start the conversation, right? And I think for a CEO, I think being an introvert is actually a superpower because we're observant, we're listening. We don't have to start the conversation, right? We're willing to say, all right, tell me what's going on. Yeah, I'm gonna sit and listen to you before I, try to take ownership of the conversation, which seems counterintuitive to a lot of people. Some people think, if you're the leader, then you're commanding the room, you're commanding, you're dominating the conversation. I don't think that's necessarily the most effective leadership. Right. I think the leadership is understanding the situation before you dive in. So I think being an introvert is actually a superpower for leading an organization.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember being in college and thinking, like, why does it take me a couple days of class, like as a semester would start, to say something? And it was just because I was observing, I was getting the lay of the land, like how's the interaction, what's the energy like? And then I would feel comfortable, contributing. But it would take me, at first I would kind of beat myself up for it for a few years. And I was like, wait, no, this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is a good thing. I read something recently about don't be the person who has all the right answers. Be the person who asks all the right questions.
I love that.
And I really think that is from an introvert's perspective is like, we've all seen it. We've seen folks that, maybe in a group setting, a meeting setting, that are extroverted. And I'm not bashing, I'm married to an extrovert, so I love extroverts. Yeah. But that would tend to start speaking and dominating conversation, and you're looking at them and saying, you don't really know what it is you're talking about, right? Whereas if you're an introvert, you're like, okay, I'm data gathering, right? I'm capturing this information. I'm understanding scenario before you open your mouth, which I think is a positive thing.
I my daughter is an introvert. An extrovert. I'm like, you have no idea what you're putting me through as your introvert mother. But I have to coach her on conversation. She'll talk on the phone. And she'll hang up. I'm like, did they say anything at all?
Right.
Now, are you also an empath by chance?
Yes, I think I am. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, we are two peas in a pod.
There you go. But I think those are great characteristics, and I think they're differentiators that are helpful.
Right. And one of the reasons I asked this question too is because sometimes these qualities can feel painful when we're growing up or even now, especially if you haven't done the work of understanding them. But, every sword is double edged. It's both a weakness and a strength depending on how you're using it. And so if you can hone it to be your strength, then, it gives that pain some purpose.
No, absolutely right. And I will admit sometimes I'm jealous when I see a very effective extrovert, right? Someone who really, manages it well. And I'm like, man, I wish I had that skill, right? To be able to dive in and go. And I'm like, that's not me. But like you said, I'm leveraging what I've got. but when I see it, sometimes I'm a little envious. I'm like, oh, that's a good characteristic.
Yeah,
they carrying that forward very well.
Like cannonballing into the pool, and we're like one toe at a time. Gotta suss this out. Okay, so give us a piece of advice for our listeners to make their lives and businesses stronger and better today.
Well, and I'll say local, just because I think that's probably where I have the most validity in terms of speaking. Fort Worth is such an amazing time to be in Fort Worth. And so if you're doing business in Fort Worth, one thing I like to remind people is Fort Worth is a very relational town. And you can say, well, a lot of places are like that. Yeah, they are. But even Dallas is more transactional in their business culture. And that's not a criticism of it. It's just sort of a facet of their culture, and it works for them. But it's important to, when you're doing business in Fort Worth, that it's still a relational town, even though we've crested 1 million people. Estimates are that we're in the 10th largest city in the country. We still have that small town sort of culture to us, and the relational aspects to it. So to be there, suit up and show up. It's not hard to break into Fort Worth. I mean, people are welcoming. Just because you're not from here doesn't mean you can't, get invited to the parties, kind of thing. But you have to put in the time. You have to put in the energy and suit up and show up, as I like to tell my folks. And I think that's the key to success in Fort Worth. And so, for those entrepreneurs or those business people seeking to grow, get engaged. And I'm not saying just the chamber. I mean, there's lots of great entities in Fort Worth, a lot of ways to become part of the community. And I truly think as people become part of the community, whether it's volunteering at the zoo or volunteering at Botanic Gardens or any other very, very worthy entities in town, you start figuring out how much you love Fort Worth, right? I mean, if you spend time here, you get involved, just building your network and learning how the city works and the community works, you tend to fall in love with it and you stay. And that's really what I think is important about Fort Worth.
Absolutely. And then final question for now is, what do you see ahead for Fort Worth in the next year or so?
The next year or so, we're on a strong growth trajectory, which I think will continue. I think you'll see, we've got a bond election coming up next year. The city will put on a ballot, which is very important for us to make sure we're keeping up with that growth. I feel really optimistic about the next year in Fort Worth and next several years in Fort Worth. Great.
Where can people find you?
Fort Worth Chamber. I'm easy to find. I'm always here. I'm always out and about. Speaking of shooting up and showing up, you'll see me pretty much everywhere.
That's
right. certainly, I'm here at the chamber every day.
Fabulous. Well, we'll put some links in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here and for all you do for Fort Worth.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.